Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition and the Orange Spine Easleys, and why 6th edition, every single hardcover for 6th edition should have an orange spine. Alright, let's talk about it. So let me define the Orange Spine Easleys really quickly. The Orange Spine Easleys are pinnacle for Dungeons & Dragons hardcovers in Dungeons & Dragons history. Every single Orange Spine Dungeons & Dragons book was a 1E Advanced Dungeons & Dragons hardcover with a Jeff Easley art cover, with a Jeff Easley painting on the cover, the front cover of the book, right? And every single one of them, of course, had this really distinctive orange spine. The orange spine said TSR, it said the name of the book, and it said the author, okay? And I think this is really, one of the things I've been really studying the Orange Spine Easleys. It's 12 books. They were all printed between 1983 and 1987, and I think they're an absolute key to understanding Dungeons & Dragons. I really do. All right, so basically so you have the Orange Spine Easleys, and so there it is, one distinctive collection of 12 hardcovers in Dungeons & Dragons history. And that orange spine is visually arresting. Like, old grognards who see it, old grognards who see that orange spine are like, they immediately lock in. Like, this is it's a visual cue to them, right? It's really important, right? And so I really been giving this a lot of thought, and I think it's really critical that that we really consider giving I think it's really critical that every 6th edition book has this orange spine. So let's talk about why. Okay, first and foremost, the reason why is to honor Gary Gygax. All right, so the Orange Spine Easleys really represent the pinnacle of his work on Dungeons & Dragons. Gary Gygax was with TSR between 1974 and 1986. That is the period where he was working on it, and the Orange Spine Easleys represent the most beautiful section of his work there. It really is the pinnacle of Dungeons & Dragons, right? As far as a collection of hardcovers, right? So it's really important. So to honor Gary Gygax, that's first and foremost. This next one is a little unusual. So it is my strong opinion that Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition is going to be done by Kate Welch, okay? Now, the great thing about that is Kate Welch will then become the first female design lead for Dungeons & Dragons in the history of the game in 45 plus years. That's a huge change, right? And it should allow, I truly believe that is going to allow us to bring in more female people into the game, right? And the reason why is, Kate Welch identifies as a female, and I believe she's in touch with, female concerns, right? And while I absolutely think male authors can write content that's compelling for females, I think, if you have a game that has never had a female lead in 4 decades, that's got to change, right? Like, if you're going to make this game inclusive and you're going to have ideas in it that are compelling to both male and female readers, it's time. I think that's I don't think that's really debatable anymore. All right. So with that said, right, you get a lot with the Kate Welch package, right? She's really, really smart. She's incredibly good with social media, so she's going to be able to lead the design work, and then she's going to be able to to advertise it and really kind of like make sure that people understand it, right? So that's going to be important, right? Now, my issue is so you have that there, right? That's going to be a thing, right? So, but and I really think Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition absolutely has the possibility of being the strongest edition in history, right? But there's an issue, right? And that issue is Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, under Kate Welch's lead, absolutely has the possibility. It's almost a 99% certainty. It will. There's no two ways about this. It's going to be the most woke version of Dungeons & Dragons ever created. It's not even going to be close, right? And not by a little bit, by a far margin, right? There's probably going to be more woke content in Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition than in every other edition combined, right? Now, I think the Dungeons and Dragons Dungeons and Dragons community falls into three groups. There's a lot of and I'm not even going to talk about percentages because the reality is we don't really know the percentages, right? But we do know these three groups exist. Super woke D&D players. They're not rare now. There's quite a few super woke D&D players, right? Then that's its own sub community within the D&D community. Then you have kind of the woke moderates, like people are like, oh, that's new. I don't really know those pronouns or how to use that. That like spelling or that terminology. People who are open to woke changes within Dungeons and Dragons, but really might not understand them all, and also are going to say to themselves, like this really hasn't been part of my game previously, but you know what, I'm going to try to change my behavior, my thinking, and my own personal culture to match what the game is putting forward, right? So people who are like kind of new to woke culture or new to aspects of woke culture, and who are willing to give it a good shake, but are it's going to be really new to them, right? So that's going to be another subset of D&D community. Then there's old grognards or people who are not woke, right? And that's another subset, right? So now those first two, I think they're going to be fine with, the one group will be very, very happy with Kate's changes. I think the next group is going to be like, yeah, okay, let's give this a shot, right? And the last is going to be upset, right? Now, I've already seen this. There's a ton of corporations and a ton of groups. And the easy answer, and Kate may decide to do this. I don't think, I'm not saying what she's going to do, but I've seen other corporations do this with products. They're like, hey, if you're unwoke, get out. Right? Like, I've seen that happen a lot, right? And personally, I think it's easy, and I think it's lazy, and I think it's inefficient, and I think it's a mistake, right? So if you're truly for inclusion, that means including your enemy, right? And that's hard. That is hard to do, right? And so I'm hoping that Kate Welch will say, okay, we are going to try to keep the non-wokes, right? Now, this is what I'm proposing, right? This is the value of the orange spine. What do you give to the non-wokes to keep them there, to give them just even one reason to pick the book off the shelf? The orange spine, right? That's it. That's like the only thing, like, you can give them nothing but that, right? Like, literally, just give these books an orange spine. It speaks to every grognard will know what it means. They'll remember them from 1983 to 1987. They'll remember this speaks to Gary Gygax's work. They'll remember that this is the game at his base, and they can read it as saying, hey, there's a ton of changes in this book, but we have not forgotten this game's heritage, right? We have not forgotten this game's traditions. There's a lot of change here, but we're in this one visual element. We are paying homage to the early days of Dungeons and Dragons, right? They're gone, but they're not forgotten. And I think it's a very and I'm okay with that being the only space given to non-wokes, right? Saying, like, not a word in this book is going to be anything that you're going to be happy about, but there's one visual cue that says we haven't forgotten you, and please change your behavior, change your thinking, change your personal culture, and join us, right? And inviting them in, rather than saying, get to stepping, right? Which I think, I don't even know, like, I understand why wokes would think that they should do that for non-wokes, because, partisanship and, conflict and all that kind of thing, and, and the things that non-wokes, that wokes and non-wokes clash over, can be, there's a lot, that's for all the marbles, and there's a lot there, right? But I really feel like it's worth, just lending, just reaching a hand out. And that's what the orange spine could be. It's just lending one hand out and saying, please join us. And I think that's very incredibly hard. But I think that's what makes great people. That's what makes great leaders. That's what makes great designers, is people who are trying to do the hard stuff, not finding comfort in the easy stuff. And I think Kate Welch can do that, and I'm hoping she will. I'm really, it'd be interesting to see what happens. What else are reasons why the orange spine should be considered? I personally believe that the orange spine should be used on 6th edition, and they should be used as a visual cue both to the readers and the buyers, but also to the designers. And I think that the structure, not the layout of each individual book, the layout of all the books, the overarching meta structure of all the books. There's a meta structure to the Orange Spine Easleys of between the 1983, the Orange Spine Easleys, right? Those 12 books. It is rules, setting, survival is part of it, right? You have those three, and then what were the books in there? So you had the settings, you had the rules, expansion and bolster, right? So you have all those. So you have the rules, the settings, survival, the expansion, and the bolster, right? Rules are the core rule books, and simple as dirt, right? Settings there were 3 settings for the Orange Spine Easleys, and then so you have those. You also have the expansions, right? The expansions were specifically Legends and Lores, which was deities and demigods, and in addition to that, you also had the Manual of the Planes, which was expansion, right? Bolster is when you take existing books like Unearthed Arcana was a bolster book, and then in addition to that, in addition to the Unearthed Arcana bolster book, Unearthed Arcana was a bolster book. It was an overflow from the DMG, and Monster Manual 2 was clearly an overflow straight out of the Monster Manual, right? And then of course you did have the settings. So I think that overall structure is really and then the survival book saying this is an incredibly dangerous game, right? It's dangerous to adventure, right? And then of course back with the Orange Spine Easleys, there was the wilderness and there was the dungeon. But that overall structure, I really think it's important to I think Kate Welch should really very carefully consider using that structure, because I think returning it to it, and also even beyond that, even the idea of doing 12 hardcovers and knowing really your 12 hardcovers, that's an edition, right? By the time you're done doing those 12 hardcovers, you're probably ready for a new edition, right? And so just to be able to tie that back and embrace the game's heritage again, embrace the game's traditions again through the Orange Spine Easleys, I think it's a huge, huge, huge opportunity. I think it's really special, and I think it would be a really good thing. The last reason I think that that every Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition hardcover book should be an Orange Spine is print guardianship, right? So the reality is, the more I study Dungeons & Dragons, the more I realize Dungeons & Dragons is a retro product through and through. It is retro to the core, right? And that it's recursive. It points back to itself again and again and again, right? And that's okay because it's a retro product. And part of that retro product is I truly believe the last things printed on this earth will be sacred texts, comic books, and tabletop role-playing games, right? Because they are the ones that really very much embrace, they are really the ones that, those are the type of books that need a visual, beautiful look, right? That, it's layout, it's art, it's writing, right? The idea that you would need to print, just a white text on paper, I don't think that's necessary anymore. But, these tabletop role-playing games, there is a real value in having these as real books. And so the idea of print guardianship, and so to tie the 6th edition books back to the 1st edition books, it's a beautiful visual recursion, right? And if you understand who and what Jeff Easley was to Dungeons & Dragons, he was a unifier. He did unification of the game visually, and this is just another way to visually tie together Dungeons & Dragons. I think it's really, really important that the Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, every single hardcover has an orange spine. I really think there's a lot of benefits for this. It's a really strong call out to tradition and heritage, to Gary Gygax. It addresses the woke, non-woke conflict that is bound to happen, and kind of puts a bomb on it right out of the gate, right? And it also speaks to print guardianship. Those are my reasons why I think that every Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition book should have an orange spine. What do you think? What do you think those spines should look like? Do you agree with me? Or do you think I'm wrong? And if you do, what do you think the spine should look like? I'd love to know. Please let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.